degree angle right here if he's on the ground. How many of you guys come over here and look at it? Why is that stifle doing that? Why is that leg doing that? He's got a rib cage he's got to get around. That horse can't come forward. That stifle's going to hit him up under here in that flank and that rib cage. He can't move. The horse is built. That's why we wonder why these horses are cowhocked, right? We wonder why when we put them on the stand, that horse can't do that in locomotion. Look where the stifle's still at. 30 degrees. Because we have a rib cage to get around. Where does all this rotate at? Up here in this hip joint. That's a ball and socket joint. That horse will rotate out that 30 degrees. When you look at this horse, to check and see if he's got a deficient toe, which this one does, go ahead and put the foot on the ground. You'll look at him at 30 degrees every time if you're wanting to look at his cannon bone. You have to. So that was one huge thing I learned back a long time ago. Now, on a lot of cow horses, hocked horses, they're like this. Is laying over the outside of this heel when you drop that plumb line. Okay? Alright? The hock is laying over the outside of this heel when we drop that plumb line down. You see it laying over here? Plumb over this outside heel, isn't it? And the tendon line is on the outside of this foot, not centered in that foot. Okay? So if you look at this tendon line, that tendon line isn't centered in that foot because that hock is laying over that outside. We got to try to help him out, get this foot back under him a little bit, or this limb. So that is my medial lateral look from behind. Now I'm going to look at my proximal distal look, okay?
Most people don't even look.
Most people don't look.
Most of them don't even look.
No, and that's why I'm here. I'm trying to get you guys to look.
They're foot shoers, not horse shoers.
And that's why I'm doing clinics.
From the top to the bottom.
That's right.
You gotta look first.
That's right.
And it shows where the foot capsule's inside that. Maybe they can see it on the TV.
So, right straight through the bones and joints of the limb to the ground. If you go past that line right there, you're creating leverage on your foot. You're crushing the heel. Does anybody know what a moment arm is? Mr. Hodges, you touched on it yesterday and didn't even know it.
I know.
Yeah.
I was leaving it for you.
Yeah.
You went out and show him, didn't you?
So Mr. Hodges touched on it yesterday. Okay. He was talking about the distance behind the center of articulation. Okay. Well, there's two moment arms. We'll use my silly foot here because I'm not a drawer, guys. I'm not a big drawer here, but center of your coffin joint right here, okay? If you have too long a moment arm from here to here, okay? If you have too long a moment arm from here to here, you crush this heel, okay? You're gonna put leverage on there. Length, too much length is leverage. Too little length, your heel starts to run forward. So if you fit to here, but your proximal distal line is here, and you're a ½ inch away because you've got a long pasture, not this horse doesn't, but let's say you had a horse with a really long pasture, okay? And you just fit to here, okay? Now what's going to happen is this heel's going to start doing this. It's going to start getting high and doing that. How many of you guys have started working on horses' feet and had bullnose feet? Started working on them, the feet was fine. A couple seconds, you got bullnose feet. I'm going to tell you why you did that. Your moment arm from here to here and your moment arm from here to here wasn't even. Why do we want that moment arm to be even from the center of articulation or the center of rotation of that coffin joint? We want it to be even because we want as much equilibrium, as much pull on the main extension as we do the deep distal flexor. We want to try to get that as closely as we possibly can, or the horse is going to compensate its stance one way or the other for that. He's not going to like it. So what happens on the bullnose feed is you've got this short kind of foot, wide kind of foot. You fit him close here. You try to almost dub the toe off here and fit him here. What happens is whenever this horse moves in the soft ground, his foot sinks in the ground. His fetlock, that acts as a wedge now. So that does that. The fetlock descends. When it does, the foot pulls forward and has to do that. When it does that, tensile forces in this laminar interface right there start to thicken. So have all you guys seen, and I've got all this stuff on computer too, but have all you guys seen that sagittal section of the foot that is on video that compresses when it compresses? Well, when it compresses, this bulges, but this goes in, okay? So if we take a 1,000-pound horse, how many of you guys have ever held a coffin bone in your hand? Really light porous bone, almost like a piece of chalk, ain't they? How does a 1,000-pound horse bear weight on that bone? He doesn't bear weight on that bone. In locomotion, how does that hoof capsule not just explode? How does it not explode? So you've got a 1,000-pound horse hitting the ground reaction coming back up from that. This hoof capsule, it's the elastic structure of the hoof capsule that's causing that foot to just not explode. But it's the tensile forces inside that elastic hoof capsule that's neutralizing all those forces. So we've all heard about this ground reaction force. Well, it's not BS. If I hit David right here, my action force is going to cause him to react. Okay? So when this hoof hits the ground force reaction, the action forces of this horse coming down have a ground reaction force opposing it. It's Newton's laws. That's what's going to happen. Okay? How does this hoof capsule take it without exploding? Because it doesn't bear weight on this little light porous bone. Through tensile forces in the laminar interface right there. Right about there in the foot. Right about there. Why does everybody say, oh, don't over-rasp the foot? What was David's clinic about yesterday? Hoof integrity. Hoof integrity. Why did David not come up here and just go to raping on that foot? You've got a 1/4 inch of wall there on a normal horse. So what happens in the bullnose horse when he starts doing this and he's got too much there and the tensile forces aren't working because it's too thick? But whenever you put let's say you put a little angle dealie on here, your toe's way underneath the outer border of the face of the hoof wall. People say, well, you can't do nothing about it. Well, yeah, you can, because your hoof wall, your tensile forces aren't working just as bad the opposite way as they could as if you rasped that and weakened the tensile forces. But you've got to take some of that. You've got to get some of this crap out of here and then learn to fit within a 1/4 inch of this proximal distal line right there. So your equilibrium, your moment arm is as close to the same as possible. That's physiology.
Jamie, can I say something?
Yes, sir.
A lot of this stuff.
Line. That is your weight-bearing line where your moment arm should extend to, but not past. Okay? If you go past that line, it's now leverage on the heel. The coffee cup effect, man. Okay, the coffee cup effect. We're trying to support, if you will, or replace hoof where our foot was deficient. If you go outside that coronary band parameter, so if I turn that upside down and looked over the mouth of or the bottom of that coffee cup over the mouth, and I went past that. This is all conformation dependent. Okay, so you're talking about proportions. Okay, geometric proportions. Okay, so let's draw our geometric proportions. Okay. We can map our foot out. 3/8 of an inch behind the point of the trim frog is Duckett's dot, or the point of force. Okay? This point of force, whenever we land, load, and leave, will move diagonally through the foot. Could move here. It all depends on this rotational deviation of this horse. So when I started doing pressure plate analysis, we thought that the point of force just went out the foot, you know. This is just the point of force. That's stationary. Oh no, it's not. That thing moves diagonally depending on the landing, twist, loading, leaving of the horse. That moves. Okay. So you go from your buttress of your heel up to your point of breakover. Buttress your heel up to your point of breakover. This point of breakover. Okay, this is this box we're talking about. Okay, this is termination of heel. Okay, now you'll go from your point of breakover to your buttress right there. Your point of breakover to your buttress right there, and that should be the widest part of your foot. I should draw my point of force just a little higher up, because that's usually within about an inch, inch and an eighth of each other. Well, this is your point of force, center of rotation. Okay, termination of heel. Now, how do we know what size section to put on a horse's foot? Horses tell us everything that we need to know. They tell us everything we need to know. They talk to us. How do we know what section do we put on a foot? Okay, this is why I made all of the Mavericks to where they go up and down in width and section, because of this right here. This distance right here to the end of the trim toe, whatever that little distance is right there, that's the proper section for that horse's foot. He tells you what to do. Now, you're asking me about 50-50. 50-50 should go from the point of breakover, because that's where the foot's going to start to leave the ground. How many people shoe their horses, they come back in 2 weeks, and you've got a rolled toe? Rolled toe starts at the inside web of the shoe. This is the point of breakover. When I did pressure plate analysis, none of them left at the end of the toe. They left right here. So from here to your center of rotation should be 50%. From center of rotation to your termination of your heel should be 50%. From here to your outer wall should be 50%. From here to there should be 50%. That's proportions. Now, geometric proportions are different. Okay, so I should be able to, when I trim my horse's foot, is take a toe measurement from the hairline to there. Okay, take that measurement with a set of calipers, and then from here to the center of rotation will be the same measurement, and then from point of force, the termination of the heel should be that same measurement. That's how you know you have your correct geometric proportions. That your foot is centered, completely proportionate around everything, to where your hoof capsule and your hoof tubules and everything are not going to distort and bend, or they will distort and bend minimally throughout the process of your 6 week shoeing, depending on environment, depending on feed, depending on weight bearing. Okay? 4% of the mass. A horse's hoof cannot distort more than 4% of the mass. Why is that? I know I'm getting a little technical here. We're going to slow this back down to just the normal stuff. you're going to rupture something. You're going to rupture hoof tubules. You're going to fracture something somewhere. If your hoof capsule distorts more than 4% of the mass. Who's had a quarter crack? Who's seen a quarter crack? Everybody. That's because your hoof capsule was out of medial lateral balance and it had to jam more than 4% of the mass and that sucker popped. Whose fault was it? We all know it was our fault most of the time because we didn't read our limb right. We need our butt kicked and learn how to read a limb better. Or do some sort of stuff like we're going to do back in this little horse here to make it better for its 6 week. Right? Take blame. Don't be afraid to take blame. Hell, I'll take blame. I couldn't read the foot. I'm a dummy. You stand right here. You look right in the middle of your fibular tarsal bone. You go right straight through the center of the sulcus of your frog to the ground. And then you go perpendicular to that. This horse is high on the inside. Now, what's so beautiful about a hind foot is, you want to see the plane and the flatness of the foot? Watch my foot. All you have to do is raise it up and down. It shows you the plane all by itself without you having to get down there and look at it. Watch that foot raise up and down. I can look at the flatness of my foot, the plane of my foot, by just doing that.
Shows the reciprocal apparatus.
Well, the reciprocal apparatus is helping us. Instead of us having to do this. How many of us do that shit? I used to. Huh? Well, you don't have to. You've got it up here. You just assessed your medial lateral balance. You can sit here and look at your plane and your flatness all day long right there. Raising that foot up and down 1.5 inches, 2 inches. We know what we're going to do. So I'm going to facilitate this foot. Okay? I'm going to wait on my horse a little bit here. And I'm going to trim that bar just a little bit in my seat of corn. I see that was a problem. I'm going to get the tip of my frog a little bit. Okay? I don't have too many skin attachments on my heels, but I'm going to facilitate my commissures. I watch a lot of guys do this. Don't do that. Hold your knife up pretty vertical and come straight out your commissure. Pretty vertical and come straight out your commissure. Okay? Anything the horse doesn't need. Okay? Now I'll get my lateral bar. I'm just going to go. I'm going to get a little bit of my toe callus. Not much. Just around the rim of my toe. I see your corn a little bit. I'm going to leave this horse with the dirty come in on. Okay? There's no depth there to speak of. There's no soul there to speak of. I'm going to leave him with that dirt that he came in on. But I facilitated my bars. I've not over trimmed them. I've not scooped them. I've just made them level. Then I adjusted my seed of corn. I've trimmed my commissures. I've trimmed the tip of my frog. Okay? Now I'm going to go after my spots. So the foot already told us what we needed to do here. Get out of that, there's nothing there, is there? See how that's folded over? We got to try to bring it back to the highest, widest part of the frog, then we're going to try to give it back and support it. So my object is to get my 4 points right now. My toe, my heel, and then blend in to my quarter. Okay? And why do I want to be real soft quarter? For you young guys, do you notice how I'm using my rasp? I'm really feeling these long strokes. Feeling underneath my hand what's going on. Okay? Two points of contact. Russell's got me using these long rasps now, so I'm not having to do a lot of this stuff. I've got such a long stroke, you know. Now